So I'm going to invite you to go somewhere a little bit different for a moment from this blaze of color and life that we see before us. You might have to close your eyes. You don't have to unless you want to. But I want you to imagine a gray sky, and below it a patch of earth. Not a beautiful patch. Just dirt, mostly. Maybe a few blades of grass here and there that have found their way up through that dirt, but mostly dirt. A few stones. And under this gray sky, in this rather barren patch of dirt, imagine a group of people. And they're moving through this space, they're bending down, they're finding things, a rock here, a weed there. Maybe even if they're really lucky, one lone dandelion with its bright yellow face open to the sun. They gather each of these things, holding them in their hands as though they are a treasure. And they come together in a group, and the person before them says, "What you hold is unique. What you hold has beauty. What you hold is a gift, just as you yourself are." And this man says, "Let us now begin our flower communion." Now, you can come back to our blaze of color and beauty here before us this morning. And we'll come back to that particular moment in history a little bit later. But I want to tell you about that man who was speaking in that barren spot. Go back to when he was a teenager. His name was Norbert Fabian Čapek, born in what we know now as the Czech Republic, born Roman Catholic. But guess what? He was a really bad Roman Catholic from the start. He asked way too many questions all the time. So of all things, he discovered the Baptist faith, and he liked it because it was a faith that was about getting out and telling people what you were passionate about. And young Norbert became a young Baptist preacher, and he would go from door to door in the Czech countryside. He would knock on the door, and these are very different times. People would invite him in, and they'd have coffee around the kitchen table, and they'd talk. And Norbert would tell them what he was excited about, what he believed in, about the compassion and love that drove him. And these folks would listen, and they'd tell Norbert about their experiences and their lives. And the more he listened to these folks, the more he started to expand his understanding of what it meant to be a human being. And it turned out, as a Baptist, he kept asking questions. And he got in trouble for that. He was finally brought before a Baptist council, and they said, "First of all, Norbert, there's a real problem with your congregation. You have taught these people to ask questions all the time. What are you thinking?" And then the second thing they told Norbert is, all this stuff that you ask about and question and wonder about, it almost sounds like you're a heretic. And then a third member at this council stands up and said, "Actually, Norbert, you know what you sound like? And I hate to say this because it's really ugly, but you sound like a Unitarian." And so Norbert went to the United States and went to New England and met with Unitarian ministers there and realized, oh my gosh, I am a Unitarian. Thank goodness for angry people at a council meeting, sometimes, right? So he decided to do something. He decided to return to Prague and start the very first Unitarian church there in the Czech Republic. And when we talk about somebody starting a new church, we think of, maybe 15, 20 people meeting in a living room somewhere or something. Very soon, this church had thousands of members. 3,000, 4,000 members were part of this church. Some of them were poor, some of them were middle class, some of them were wealthy, some of them had Jewish identities, some of them had Christian identities, some of them were agnostic, some of them were atheists. They came from all over, they had different backgrounds, different ideas, different places in society, but they all came to that great big church in Prague. All came together because they were hungry for something different. They were hungry for a message that was based in rationalism, that was based in humanism, that was based in a love that was about helping one another. So the church is wildly, wildly successful. But Norbert has a problem. Because this is a relatively new faith for this community, and because they are focused so much on rational thinking, there's something missing in these services. They feel like lectures. They don't quite feel like a religious service. But what do you do? What do you do when you have people sitting next to each other who are atheists and theists and agnostic and this continues to be the question, right? What do you do? How do you serve all these people? And he thinks, what can I do? We need some sort of ritual, he thinks, something that will feel spiritual, but will allow people to interpret that however they interpret that, whatever it means for them. So he's sitting there, the story goes, and he looks out the window and he looks at the hillside and he sees the beautiful flowers there and he thinks, that's it. He says, we can't do a traditional communion. The bread and wine communion doesn't make sense for this group of people. We can't appropriate some sort of ritual from some other religion, but we can create something that is meaningful for us. So he comes before his congregation and he tells them that Sunday, he says, look, next Sunday I want you to go out into your garden, or if you live here in the city, I want you to go to the nearest flower stall and I want you to pick a beautiful flower that to you really feels like something that represents who you are. And when you get to the church, I want you to come forward to the front and we're going to have a great big vase here and we're going to put all of these flowers together, and when you see them together, you are going to see this bouquet that we could never have planned, but is so gorgeous and beautiful with all that it includes, with all the beauty and uniqueness that comes together in this one particular community, and we are going to celebrate that. But not only are we going to do that, when it comes time at the end of the service to go home, you're going to go home with a flower that someone else has brought, as a reminder of the unique gifts that we give each other, as a reminder of the freedom of conscience that has brought all of us to this space so that we can freely explore our intellect and come together in a faith community that is accepting of us as whoever we are. So, of course, they do this ritual, and it's lovely and beautiful, and it's a thing that this congregation has been missing, and more people begin coming. This is 1923, 103 years ago. But things change in the city, and as we move forward in history a bit, we find the Nazis arriving. And we find this great big liberal church in the middle of the city as a target. The Gestapo is worried about what's happening inside that church. And so they park Gestapo at the exits during the Sunday services. So they're standing there and witnessing what's happening. But guess what? Čapek is a master of metaphor, right? He knows how to talk to his congregation in a way that the people standing at the doors, it goes right over their heads. So every single Sunday, they're talking about resistance and what they need to do to stop fascism in the world. But those folks at the door don't get it. They don't understand that that's what's happening. He was a brilliant, brilliant preacher, able to convey a message that they needed. And those folks were part of a large network of resistance that was happening in Europe at that time, helping to bring people to safety. So this little flower communion, which can look so pretty and maybe even trite if we just look at it superficially, this becomes something even deeper than he intended. Underneath this flower communion, there is a message of freedom. There is the message of the worth and dignity of every single human being. There's a message of the importance of being able to access our conscience and act upon it in the world. There is a message of diversity, and all of this is stuff fascism absolutely hates. Authoritarianism hates this. So, Čapek and his lovely wife, Maya, their daughter, Zora, they're there. They're communicating with the Unitarian Service Committee, who is working so hard to get people out of Europe who are in danger, and they say to Čapek, look, we can get your family out. We'll get you out to safety. And he says, I'm not going. And he tells his wife, he says, Maya, go. Go and tell them what's happening here. But I'm going to stay. And his daughter Zora stays with him. And in 1941, the two are arrested. She is sent to a work camp. And Čapek is sent to the clergy section of the infamous Dachau concentration camp. And this, my friends, is where I opened the story. And while it is bleak at this point in the story, the hope that pulses out of this story is undeniable. Because we have eyewitnesses in that camp. Catholic priests, rabbis, who say that this Unitarian minister, Norbert Čapek, kept hope and faith alive for the clergy in that camp. That his humanistic, inclusive message was so strong and powerful that even in the bleakest of circumstances, those folks found their way forward. Now, it's said, and we don't have the documentation, this is a verbal story that has been passed down over the years. It's said that in that camp, he led a flower communion with the rocks and twigs and weeds that I talked about before. I don't know whether that's apocryphal or true or not, but I know that there is truth in the story in the sense that he did offer them hope through his faith in a way that helped some folks survive. Unfortunately, Čapek was put to death in the gas chamber. He did not survive. But the stories about him in even that space carried on, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Because things do carry on long after these flowers have wilted and faded. I mean, the flowers from the last 103 years of flower communions, none of them are in existence anymore. As far as I know, they have faded and wilted and dried up and blown away. But this survives. This idea of freedom of conscience, of the dignity of everyone, of the power of community, of courage in the face of adversity, particularly in the face of authoritarianism. Many of you might have heard this week that the federal government removed 180 categories of recognition of religious and faith groups from the military organizational system. What that means is that this includes Unitarian Universalists, it includes United Church of Christ, it includes atheists and spiritualists and humanists and so many other faith groups that had their own category. It means that someone who's in the military can no longer seek out a UU chaplain. They can go seek out what is now called other. 180 categories smashed into an other category. Now, this is at face value about the military system of organization. And I don't want to be catastrophic in my interpretation of this because we never quite know what might be coming. But I think we can also take this as a signal or a sign that there might be people in power who have ideas about what religions are federally recognized and what aren't, what faith movements and communities are recognized or not. It's a signal, and how we respond to that signal helps create what the story is moving forward. And I think we should take it as a warning, and I think we should respond accordingly. And what I think this means at this moment in time, and it means it for all of our other allies and from various faith communities, it means at this moment in time that we do not shrink and become less you publicly. We don't try to hide ourselves. We don't comply in advance, as they say. This isn't a moment to become vague or wishy-washy about what we believe. It's not a moment to turn in on ourselves and start arguing about things that don't really matter because it's too hard to take in what's happening in the world. No, this is a moment that we join in solidarity. And we put all the stuff that doesn't matter aside and think about what it means to be a part of this faith in this world today, and to be part of a larger community of faith communities who are allies for us, who are doing the same work of resistance against authoritarianism in the world today. This is a time where we embrace our values as Unitarian Universalism, our values of religious freedom, of pluralism, of the freedom of conscience, of unity and human dignity, of coming together when times are hard. And we have this example from history, this wonderful story that has its bleak moments, yes, but it's also a story of what endures, of real concrete hope that has endured. Because Maya, Norbert's wife, she's alive in the United States when this happens. And she tells the story. She's part of that ministry, and she gets out and she shares what happened before. She shares the story of the flower communion and what it meant. And one by one, our UU churches begin doing this as an annual tradition. This ritual spreads. And here we are this morning, 103 years later, not just doing this as a pretty ritual of beauty and joy, even though it, goodness knows, it has all those components, but recognizing this morning that we are doing this as a reminder that yet again, we are stronger than we know. We are beautiful and unique, and we each bring gifts to the table that are important to this community and to the work we're doing. These flowers represent that, but again, these flowers will fade. But what we do will carry on. This morning, I invite us to do this ritual for Zora, for Maya, for Norbert, for every flower that was trampled on before its time. We do this ritual this morning as a reminder to ourselves that we can do really hard things sometimes. and that we will survive. We will carry on. And that even in the bleakest of times, there is beauty to be found. All we have to do is look at one another. So are you ready to accept from the hands of the children of this community a flower this morning? Are we ready for this? Do we get what this ritual is about this morning? Exactly. All right, kids, I'm going to invite you to come in. The kids are going to come forward. We have baskets that are bountiful, full of flowers. They'll be bringing these flowers around to you. The flowers that remain at the end of the service, I want you to come forward and take them home. But again, as you get your flowers this morning, remember that they are representative of all the folks in this community who are here holding one another through this time.